Hey, my YouTube friends and family. You guys that have followed me for a while, you're probably aware that I try to report on a missing persons case every week to 2 weeks, at least once a month. And I'm sorry, I need to be more consistent with that. But I do have a full-time job, so it's kind of hard to, get everything, all the research completed and then out there. But nonetheless, you also know, many of you know that I have been doing a lot of videos on 5-year-old Summer Wells missing from Rogersville, Tennessee. She was reported missing on June the 15th of this year. And many of us have learned that Summer is not the first member of this family to go missing. Candus, now just to avoid confusion, Candus, that is Summer's mom's name and Summer's grandmother's name. So Rose Bly, she went missing in 2009, and that's Candus, the grandmother's daughter, and so Summer's mom's sister, so it would be Summer's aunt. But I wanted to cover her case just for the fact that she's still missing. She's seemingly vanished without a trace, kind of like Summer at this point. Again, Summer's not the only family member or member of this family to go missing. Rose is still missing. Now let's move on to the case. 21-year-old Rose Bly was last seen by her husband, Christopher Larson, as she left their St. Croix Falls, Wisconsin home around 7:30 p.m. on August 21st of 2009, heading to Cushing, Wisconsin to allegedly meet her cousin and a friend. It's unclear whether they were supposed to meet at her cousin's house or at a bar in Cushing. Unfortunately, Rose never made it to her destination, and she has not been seen or heard from since. The next morning, her husband, Chris, was worried because, of course, his wife, Rose, hadn't made it home. Chris allegedly called one of the individuals that Rose and her cousin were supposed to meet up with. And here's what the friend later said in a statement. And the friend's name is Nicole. So Nicole writes, "She told Chris at the time that she was going to her cousin's and I was meeting her there for us all to go out. He showed up at my parents' house the next morning and they called me and he was on the phone asking me if I knew where his wife was. And I asked who it was that was talking to me, and he said Chris Larson. And I said, who? And he said, Rose's husband. Have you seen my wife? I said no, and he said, well, she never came home this morning, and said she was going out with you and her cousin last night." So once Chris realized that no one had seen or heard from his wife, Rose, he reported her missing later that day on August 22nd of 2009. Rose's white Pontiac Grand Prix was found a few days later in Grantsburg, Wisconsin, which is approximately 15 miles from Cushing, which is where Rose was allegedly meeting her cousin and a friend. Now, the car keys were missing, but the car did not look like there had been a struggle inside of it. Now, law enforcement, they did come out and say DNA was found inside, but from what I've been able to find, there was no match in the system, therefore that DNA is on file. Now, let's talk about what was being said at this time. Now, Chris, Rose's husband, he seemed to think that Rose could have left on her own accord. Their marriage was allegedly let's just say less than a perfect one. Rose and Chris had gotten married to each other for the second time, from what I've read, a few months prior to Rose going missing. They were married in February of 2009, and she went missing in August 2009. But they have 2 little girls together, one 9-month-old daughter and one 19-month-old daughter, and that was, again, the ages at the time Rose went missing. But nonetheless, Chris seemed to allude that Rose would just walk away, and Chris did end up filing for a divorce from Rose, but benefit of the doubt and all, that he said the reason that he did this was so he could get sole custody of their two little girls in case Rose suddenly came back. Now, from what I've read, it looks like law enforcement did confirm that Chris did pass a polygraph test, but to date he still refuses to speak much about Rose's disappearance. He did say, I hope she's okay and I hope she gets a hold of somebody. And he wouldn't discuss his wife's disappearance any further. Police have said Chris is not a suspect. Now, in the days that followed Rose's disappearance, investigators talked with some of her friends, acquaintances, people that just knew Rose, and had asked them if maybe Rose had mentioned running away. And every single person they talked to said no, none of that was ever mentioned. So apparently her husband, Chris, is the only one, from what I've gathered, that thinks Rose would have just walked away. And also, investigators, when they were looking for clues, of course they checked Rose's cell phone, and the night that she left, that's the last time that the cell phone was used. I could not find who the last call was made or, any of that, but I'm sure it probably doesn't matter, or else, if it was something significant, then we would possibly know where Rose is or who's responsible for Rose's disappearance. But people who knew Rose, they had said Rose also had problems with depression, but again, she never talked about running away and leaving her family. Now, Candus, Rose's mom, Candus, she said, I'm just at my wit's end. I don't know what happened to my daughter. She said she doubts that her daughter, who wanted to be a children's book author, would have just left on her own accord. Candus said that Rose was an amazing mother, and the investigators, again, they said from what they've heard from just about everybody that they spoke to, nobody believes that she would have just taken off and left her children. Now, Candus, Rose's mom, also said that Rose enjoyed riding horses, and that there had been talk that Rose fell off of a horse shortly before her disappearance, and that she possibly suffered some kind of a head injury. Candus said that she fell from a horse about a week before she went missing, and that the last time she talked to Rose, which was 2 days before Rose's disappearance, that Rose had complained to her about headaches. And Candus said she told Rose to go to the doctor, but there was no evidence that Rose consulted with a doctor. So at this point, we do not know if she reached out. My assumption is no, because of course they would have that on record. But we've got HIPAA that we've got to take into consideration too, and I don't know how that works with missing persons, but head trauma, that was definitely mentioned. But again, we don't know at this point if Rose ever went to the doctor or consulted with the doctor. All we know is Candus said that Rose was complaining about her head hurting and that she had recently took a fall off of a horse. Now, investigators have never publicly identified a suspect, or have they suggested any type of a motive. The only clue that they really received was early on when they found Rose's car, which was 30 miles north of Rose's home. And her car was found in Grantsburg, Wisconsin. And like I said earlier, the keys were in there. No type of, evidence of a struggle. So really not a lot to go on. And Candus did make a statement speaking with her daughter, just in case she's out there and does hear. But she said, Rosie, if you're out there, I still have the same number. So she's desperately, searching. She needs closure for her daughter, that went missing back in 2009. And now she has a missing granddaughter in 2021. This is crazy, but let me know what you guys think about this. If you have any information on Rose Bly, you are urged to call the Polk County Sheriff's Office at 715-485-8300. And again, Rose Bly is 5 feet tall. She weighed approximately 110 pounds at the time she was reported missing. She had light brown hair and brown eyes at the time, but her mom, Candus, did say Rose was known to change her hair quite often. Rose also has her ears and her belly button both pierced. She was last seen wearing jeans, a green v-neck sweater over a white tank top, and flip-flop sandals. Again, anyone with any information is urged to call 715-485-8300. And as always, thank you all for watching.